Hi, I'm Jonathan Kingham, the head of Lexis PSL Immigration, and in this short video, I'm going to be doing a short presentation on the module to show you how to use the module and also some of the key features. So when you first open up the module, this is the home page, and on the first time that you do it, I would recommend that you go up here where it says My Settings and click on that, and you can then set up to receive daily or weekly news alerts coming through to your email. And they will take the form of email updates, which show all of this news that comes through. So if I give you some examples of that, there will be case digests, there will be news analysis pieces, there will be recent legislation summaries, and there will be news pieces about recent developments. So, for example, if the Home Office introduces new guidance on key issues for business practitioners, then we do short news pieces to alert you to that. Every month, we do monthly highlights, which will also come to your news pods. And so they will look like this. And they group all of the recent news pieces according to the topics which we cover in the module. So it's important that the first thing you do is to set up your news alerts so that you get them on a daily basis, or also you're able to set up the monthly highlights coming to your email. This is the topic section of the website on the homepage again. And so as you can see, we cover quite a lot of different topics which are relevant to the business practitioner. If you click on the top of the topic, these are all the subtopics. These are the main areas that we cover. So this key developments topic covers recent developments. So our COVID materials, citizens' rights and the new immigration system, the monthly highlights we just looked at, and also case reviews. We do 6-month case reviews are in there. Then in terms of the main material, we cover immigration control, how it works. So materials about the sources of immigration law. We do an analysis piece on each new major statement of changes, where we look through what's changed in the rules and how that affects practitioners. And then background material on immigration control, who requires permission to travel to the UK, materials on applying in the UK and overseas, the procedure, the relevant background law, returning residents, offences and liability, and then also quite a lot of stuff on the general grounds for refusal. Obviously, that's an important topic for practitioners, and we cover quite a lot of materials on that. Cancellation of permission and grounds for refusal, previous conduct, false representations, duty of disclosure, and so forth. We then cover all of the main routes of entry, so visitor, sponsored work, skilled worker, ICT, sports person, creative worker, and so on. Then we have materials on sponsorship, applying for a license, sponsor duties and responsibilities, downgrading or revocation. Then we have business investment and non-sponsor work, so materials covering most of the non-sponsor categories, graduate, global talent, Hong Kong BNO, Tier 1 investor, the pre-PBS or PBS categories, and so on. We cover students, child student, and parent of a child student, the family categories under the old Part 8 and Appendix FM, human rights and long residence, and then we have quite a lot of materials on the EU aspect. So we have archived materials covering free movement law, as was, which is still relevant in some circumstances, but then also a lot of materials on EU settlement scheme and frontier workers. If I go into the EU settlement scheme, for each of our subtopics, we have points notes, legislation, news analysis, rules and guidance, Q&As, and then, if relevant, precedents as well. And I'll show you that in a few seconds. But on the EU settlement scheme, just to show you what we cover, first of all, we have a document what does IP completion date mean for immigration? This looks at the background law underneath the end of the implementation period, and shows the key material, the key legislation that underpinned the changes at the end of 2020. So that's quite helpful in terms of the background to the settlement scheme, and also the grace period, and those sort of complex issues. In terms of the settlement scheme itself, our main practice note is this one, eligibility requirements under Appendix EU. That's quite a detailed practice note and covers most of the issues that come up on a day-to-day basis. We also have derivative and surrender sing rights of residents, a practice note on the mechanics of making an application and aspects relevant to that, dealing with the refusal, and then we also have materials on the withdrawal agreement, and finally on right to work checks. Obviously, the withdrawal agreement can be quite helpful, particularly on sort of more tricky issues in the settlement scheme, and these practice notes cover all of the key areas within the withdrawal agreement. Okay, so just finally, in terms of what we cover, we have materials on appeals, administrative review, JR, and enforcement. In terms of challenging immigration decisions and enforcement, lots of materials on preventing illegal working, both in terms of employers' duties and dealing with actual or alleged illegal working, if someone without permission is discovered to be working for an employer. We then have citizenship materials, naturalization and registration, and finally some materials on overseas immigration. So there are jurisdictional guides on specific business immigration issues in various countries overseas. Just coming back to the home page again. That was a whistle-stop tour through the types of areas that we cover. I just want to quickly show you how to use our practice notes and how they work. So if I look at skilled worker, for example, as I mentioned, we've got practice notes, precedents, cases, news analysis, rules and guidance, and Q&A. The practice notes all cover the same, or all in the same sort of format for each of the routes, so that once you start using the module for one route, it follows the same style for others, so you know how to get to the things you want to find quickly. Where the route is a sponsored route, we'll split it up into the sponsorship angle, sponsoring an employee under skilled worker, so in relation to the procedure and criteria for a certificate of sponsorship, and then the factors that are relevant for the employee and the eligibility, validity, and suitability requirements, as well as dependents and settlement. Then we may have some other practice notes. So in this scenario, we have genuineness considerations, a practice note on the small companies regime, which applies to whether or not a company is a small company for sponsorship purposes, immigration skills charge, a note on the changes of employment provisions, quite important, English language requirement, a long note on general requirements for settlement, looking at absences, knowledge of life in the UK and English, and then two quite detailed notes on dependents, so partners of work, investment and study migrants, and children of work, investment and study migrants. Finally, we have a schedule of absences, which is a Excel spreadsheet, which contains a feature whereby it will show you in a graph format on a rolling basis how absences are going. And so if you add in the absences, or if the client adds in the absences as they go, they can see on the graph how near they are to the 180 days rolling figure, the maximum figure. So that's quite a helpful function in the schedule of absences. And also we have a note on working remotely and a timeline of changes for Tier 2 General, the predecessor category. If I go into this practice note, applying under skilled worker, as I mentioned, they all follow the same sort of format. The way you get to a section within a practice note, you can just go from the top. There's also a table of contents on the left-hand side you can use. But say I want to look at validity requirements, I just click on that button. You'll see, and this is sort of important for using the module, in all of our practice notes, there's this, by the side or the right-hand side of sentences, there is this orange speech mark. This is a right-hand column link. This is where you can link to the relevant authority for what we're talking about in the preceding passage. So, for example, here, this authority is the immigration rules, but we'll also link to guidance and so forth, depending on the caseworker guidance, depending on what we're talking about. And our practice notes will generally explain summarize the relevant law, pull out any practice points of particular interest, and any problems or discrepancies with the law and the guidance. And it's all sort of heavily focused on the immigration practitioner's needs. Each practice note will also have at the top key resources at a glance. And this is a grouping of the relevant immigration rules, the relevant Home Office guidance for the various aspects, and then also links to the Home Office visa information tools where you can get to the forms and so forth. So that's quite a helpful sort of all-in-one resources tab that we have in many of our root practice notes. I also mentioned that we have precedents. We have a number of precedents across the module. In skilled worker, we have emails at the beginning of the process, template emails, and email at the end of the process, and that's to the applicant where the advisor is acting for the sponsor. If I open that up. So as you can see, this is a template email. You can download it into Word, adapt it in your as you see fit, and it covers the key sort of eligibility and application process in relation to skilled worker. We also have general entry clearance and permission to stay questionnaires, so the common questions that are asked in visa applications, also common documents that are required in both applications. So we have a general entry clearance application checklist, general permission to stay application checklist, and then also a grant of indefinite leave to remain information sheet for the client. I'll just show you the entry clearance application checklist. Again, downloadable into Word, and you can adapt as you see fit. Okay, so that's a tour of what we cover and how the materials work. I just want to show you as well some of the what we call key resources for the module, which I'll flick onto there. This is on the third tab of the home page, and there you can see we have a page on COVID immigration resources. This is a practice note which summarizes the sort of key home COVID concessions and developments in relation to immigration, which we keep updated. Again, you can get to where you want to using the bar at the top. So for example, if I want to look at international arrivals and travel, which is one of the most important things at the moment, it's all there and links again to all the relevant guidance and law. We also have in the key resources tab, go back there again, this, which is a Home Office fees calculator for common routes, which looks like this. So this is a tool that we've developed, which we update every time there's new fees regulations, to enable the practitioner to quickly estimate what the costs of an application will be for the main applicant and dependents across all of the key routes. and including various additional costs. So, for example, if you want to find out what the entry clearance is for a SESC national, you want the compulsory fees and the priority fees in global talent. Let's try that. So, entry clearance, say it's a SESC national, compulsory fees, global talent, and the main applicant, 3 years permission. That will be the fee. And then you can add on, the additional things. So endorsement application using the control button, endorsement application, priority service, and so forth. And then you can also add in dependent partners and children according to the amount of leave you want. And there you have the fee, and you can copy it and stick it into an email for your client. So it's a super way of estimating quickly what the relevant costs will be at the onboarding stage. Similarly, there's similar functionality in relation to the sponsorship fees, in relation to sponsor license fee for a new sponsor, and immigration skills charge, and then the cost fee. So very helpful tool we have on the module for fees. Okay. We also have in the key resources pages which link to all the application forms in one place. And you do that by using the alphabetical letters. So, for example, here are all the FLR forms, FLRFP, then that will take you directly to the online application form. Also in the key resources, we have archive documents. So this was something we added to the module a few years ago, further to feedback from users. But we have a full archive of PBS and new immigration system sponsor guidance. We also have a full archive of pre-Brexit policy guidance in PBS categories. If I just show you this one. This is the archive of sponsor guidance for workers and temporary workers. And as you can see, we have saved all of these sponsor guidance documents, part 1, 2, and 3, as they've come out. And then we also include a comparison version, which highlights in red or green text what's changed between the last version and the current version. And so here the 3 separate sponsor guidance documents, then the category specific documents. We have a separate archive in relation to the sponsor appendices, again going back to 2008 and having these comparison documents. We also have this document here, which can also be found in key resources, which is called Locating Guidance and Using Archives for Immigration Research. This explains how you can find old law, old guidance, and in particular, I would flag up a prefix in this section here, locating previous versions of guidance. This is an extremely helpful way of finding old guidance. What you do is you take that prefix, put it into the browser, add in the current web page that you want to look at, and then click enter, and you will see what emerges is all of the old archived versions of that web page over the years that have been taken by the National Archives. And so it's an extremely accurate way of finding what's been archived of all pages, basically, on the Home Office pages on gov.uk. And that is can be found in Locating Guidance and Using archives for immigration research. Finally, in terms of key resources, I wanted to show you the Q&As, which actually can be found here. We have a service whereby users can ask questions whenever they can't find the answer to something in the module. We obviously can't provide legal advice, but we can provide generic responses in relation to generic questions. And whenever a user sends in a Lexis Ask, we will very often publish the response as a Q&A. They cover sort of various aspects, and they're only at a moment in time. They're not updated, but here they all are, and you can often find specific questions that you've been wondering about, for example, in relation to dependent switching and things like that here. So just flagging that up as well, the Q&A section. Great, so I think that covers pretty much everything. Just scrolling down the home page, you can see all of the people all of the external experts who have written for us, or are on the consulting editorial board, or on our Q&A panel here. And separately, this tab here allows you to find quickly or link in quickly to the key immigration law materials on Lexis library, so McDonald's Immigration Law and Practice, Butterworth's Immigration Law Service, and Fransman's British Nationality Law, all of which require a Lexis library subscription. But if you have that, then that will take you straight to those. And then here are some useful links, sector links. So I hope that was a helpful video showing you how to use the module and some of the key features. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.